Hey guys, it's Chris. From teachers with naughty secrets to teachers fired for literally saving the lives of their students. Here are 10 teachers who were fired for the most ridiculous and unbelievable reasons. Number 10. Fired for twerking. Topping off the list is a woman named Carla, and she was an elementary school teacher in a small town in Mexico who took a brief vacation to Cabo San Lucas to unwind a little bit. But Carla ended up unwinding quite a lot. She actually entered into a dance competition one day, wearing nothing but a bikini, and managed to win herself a quick $260. But that's pretty much where the fun ended, because the dance contest was recorded on video and Carla was caught doing a whole lot of twerking. If you know anything about twerking, you'll probably know that this is not the type of behavior smiled upon by their teachers. The video found its way onto the internet, and since teacher Carla was a rather attractive woman, the video went viral. Within just a few hours, it was basically everywhere. Carla finished her vacation, packed up her belongings, and went back to her little town in northern Mexico. Unbeknownst to her, basically everyone had seen the video of her twerking by the time she showed up. She walked into school, was taken aside by her superiors, and promptly fired. According to Carla herself, she was labeled immoral, called immature, and treated like some kind of back alley, you-know-what. She claimed she did nothing wrong, and of course she didn't. Just because she was a teacher didn't mean she wasn't a human. People are allowed to dance in whatever way they want. But in any case, she lost her job, and probably that $260 she made isn't going to make up for her losses. Number 9. Fired for doing adult videos. This next story is a whole lot more understandable than the first one. Teachers are generally supposed to be looked upon as role models with a good sense of judgment since, they raise our children for us pretty much. This teacher was a professor named Nicholas Goddard, and he was fired for starring in adult films. This is not that surprising considering the parents of Nicholas's students found out that their kids could watch their teacher performing some kind of gnarly acts at any point in time on their phones. And obviously, this is not an ideal situation that you want your child to be in. He was actually a professor at the University of Manchester and a very well-educated chemical engineering teacher, but he had dabbled in pornography a decade earlier. According to the man himself, he had gone through a very stressful divorce and turned to adult videos as an outlet, which is apparently something people do. In any case, once the university got wind of his old ways, they suspended him immediately. And this isn't surprising considering it wasn't even one film. He actually appeared in dozens of films, often with women who were at least 40 years younger than him. He even went under the pseudonym Old Nick, which you can interpret how you'd like. Don't make me say it, just a regular old public service announcement. Number 8. Fired for wearing a swimsuit. A teacher from Russia has been fired for wearing a swimsuit. It's literally as cut and dry as that. I'm talking about a woman named Victoria Popova from Omsk, who worked at a school literally named School Number 7. You can thank the Soviets for such creativity. In any case, photos of the teacher showed up online with her wearing a full-body one-piece bathing suit. Basically a swimming suit that was not naughty or nasty in any way whatsoever. She was literally just wearing a bathing suit. But according to the story from the BBC, that didn't stop her from being immediately fired. Her professional attitude was brought into question and she was terminated on the spot. I don't know, what do you think? Appropriate? Inappropriate? Let me know in the comments below. But considering it is the age of outrage, the story went viral. The social media trolls lost their minds, and within a short amount of time, more than 3,000 other women and teachers posted pictures online of themselves wearing bikinis and swimwear. They used the hashtag #TeachersArePeople and this is one of those cases where social media actually did something great. After all the posts went up on the web, the government in the Omsk region of Russia made a statement that said Victoria could return to her job. Not only that, but it's reported that Victoria promptly received some offers to work as a model, so everything really turned out okay in the end. Number 7. Fired for saying vagina. Before we jump into this next story, let's get one thing clear. The word vagina is not a bad word, and neither is the word penis, even though Microsoft Word bleeps it out when you use the dictate function. No part of the human body is a bad word. There are over 6 billion of us on the planet, and each of us owns one of these 2 body parts. There's nothing wrong with saying vagina. It's the same thing as saying hand, finger, face, or foot. But this didn't stop Allison Wint, a substitute art teacher at the middle school in Michigan, from being fired for saying the word. It all happened when Allison was discussing the work of another artist who paints flowers as representations of vaginas. There's nothing lurid or disgusting about it, it's just an art form. But after the word fell from Allison's lips, the administrators at the middle school were not very pleased. She was basically called out as a pervert, and some of the students even recorded how many times she said the word during class. According to CBC, it was approximately 10 times. Using such a word in a vulgar meaning would obviously be a bit of a problem, but when just talking about it as a body part, it shouldn't really be an issue. The day after she said it, the school principal informed Allison that she had violated a school policy in which reproductive health is not to even be discussed without prior approval. She was terminated. Basically, that's an A+ for the human race. How dare anyone talk about the literal things we have on and in our bodies. Number 6, fired for a note. This is probably one of the most outrageous reasons ever for getting yourself fired. This is one of those incidents that's actually not unwarranted. The school had every right to fire a daycare worker in Texas after he did something extremely inappropriate. It all happened when Francesca Easton began to discuss changes to her son's lunch diet with the staff at the school. As reported by NBC News, the mother was trying to help her son make healthier choices. She put a note inside her son's lunchbox one day, asking that his teacher tell him that she loves him and is thinking about him. This seemed like a totally normal thing to do, especially at a daycare where kids are so young. Here's where things got pretty rocky, though. When the boy went home that day and gave his mother his lunchbox, he found a note written inside of it telling her to put her son on a diet and to go away. The teacher basically sent a note saying that her kid was fat and needed to be on a diet, and that she needed to bug her off. She was obviously extremely distressed by what happened, and she showed up to the school the next morning to wait for the director. The employee was then promptly fired and escorted off school property. The mother then went on to remove her child from that daycare and enroll him in a different one. This is obviously a pretty disgusting story, and that teacher probably regrets his decision now that he doesn't have a job. Number 5, fired for fans only. The next story of a high school teacher being fired after the students found her OnlyFans account is a 50-50. It's not exactly like wearing a swimsuit on Instagram, but it's also not quite as bad as starring in adult films, is it? Is there a ranking for these types of things? Should there be? This happened in California, when a Latina teacher who was only 26 at the time wasn't making enough money teaching to meet her expenses, and decided to open an OnlyFans account since she was pretty bodacious. Seems like a gray area, but if the students found out, or their parents, I could easily see why she might get in trouble. She charged $5 for a regular subscription, or $25.50 for 3 months with a subscription bundle. Everything was going well. She shared around 160 posts and got 8,000 likes. But then everything went wrong when one of her students stumbled upon the account and the whole thing went viral. Well, you know what happened next. She was fired. And I'm not totally sure how people should feel about this one. It's obviously pretty upsetting that a person charged with teaching an entire generation of kids didn't make enough money doing it and had to resort to adult content on the internet. This is completely wrong on every level, but at the same time, it would probably be pretty uncomfortable to have all of her students able to follow her OnlyFans page. At the end of the day, this teacher is now doing OnlyFans full-time to try and make enough money to get by. What do you think? Should this teacher have been fired or not? Let me know in the comments below. Number 4, fired for getting pregnant. Getting pregnant can be stressful enough as it is without losing your job because of it. Terry James, who had been a teacher at the San Diego Christian College, was fired for the heinous act of getting pregnant out of wedlock. This one's not really a big surprise. Private religious schools praise morality and then show that they have literally zero compassion or morality of their own when push comes to shove. They actually have special clauses in their contracts in which a teacher or employee agrees to refrain from things like premarital sex, as this obviously goes against the school's rules about living a holy lifestyle. In any case, we don't really want to get into the specifics of the incident, but basically, Miss James got pregnant by her fiancé. The school found out about it and she was terminated. But here's where the real twist comes in, and where the disgusting and quite frankly inhumane attitude of the private religious school comes to light. After she was fired for being pregnant, the man who impregnated her was offered her job. What do you think? That's pretty shady. Let me know in the comments below. Number 3, fired for saving a life. You might not think so, but it turns out that teachers can be fired for actually saving the life of their students. This is what happened to Jennifer Mitz, a teacher at a high school in Tennessee. On 2 different occasions, Jennifer went above and beyond to help her students when they were in desperate need. The first incident was when she took one of her students, who was a 17-year-old pregnant female with a fever and pneumonia, to the emergency room so she could receive treatment. Because of this act of kindness, the student actually credits her compassionate teacher with saving the life of her baby. And Jennifer did this a second time when she took a sick student to the emergency room. Because the student had no medical insurance and was not even a human in the eyes of the hospital, Jennifer paid the expenses out of her own pocket. This is obviously the right thing to do, and something that anyone with a heart would have done, but instead of being labeled a hero, Jessica was fired after teaching for 14 years because her actions were labeled dangerous for the school district by a bunch of old dudes who don't really care about anything. Talk about fair. Number 2, fired for being a lesbian. It's honestly a little difficult to say which of these stories is the most shocking and the most horrendous. This next story about Monica Lissandro, who had been a teacher at the Covenant Christian School in Palm Bay, Florida, is definitely horrendous, but honestly, it's not that shocking. It's obviously nobody's business what a person's sexual orientation is, but that didn't stop the school from firing Monica after she was outed as being gay. This even happened as recently as 2019, when Monica was called into the administrator's office, outed as being a lesbian, and promptly fired for violating the morality policy of the school. Because obviously, if your sexuality is not in line with the shady morals of the school, you are basically a heathenistic beast unworthy of a job. But again, this isn't surprising. As reported by The Guardian, there are absolutely no federal or state laws that protect a person from being fired because of their sexuality. And in all honesty, you can't really expect much when you work at a Christian school. It's obviously wrong, but it's not unexpected coming from that kind of institution. Number 1, fired for extinguishing a fire. This is one of those outrageous stories that literally makes no sense. When Michelle Hammock put out a fire at the Florida daycare center where she worked, she was promptly fired. And yes, this is as insane as it sounds. Obviously, it's extremely important that when you work at a daycare, you take care of the safety of the children. And considering this teacher was a completely normal person and didn't feel like watching a whole room of children die from smoke inhalation or be burned to death, she rushed into action, found a fire extinguisher, and put out the flames. Thus, she saved the lives of all the children. But rather than be praised as a hero, she was condemned as a reckless lunatic and promptly fired several hours after. According to a report by the Huffington Post, she was actually terminated for the ridiculous reason of leaving children in a room unattended. But she had to leave them in a room momentarily so she could grab the fire extinguisher to put out the flames. This suggests that her boss actually would have preferred if she'd stayed in the room with the children while they all burned in the inferno. Her boss even explained in an interview, saying that he stands by his decision to fire her for leaving the room. It's not acceptable, he said, and if anybody else does the same thing, he will fire them too. I'll let you put your own conclusions together about this guy. Do you think any of these teachers was fired for just cause? Sound off in the comments. As always, thanks for watching. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to World List. We'll see you again soon for more outrageous videos.